Okay, this is a really cool system. I've worked with a bunch of different billion-dollar startups at this point, and they all use this system. I'm also going to show you that Fortune 500 companies also use this system. And basically what we're doing is tracking our lead source through things called UTMs. If you're not sure what a UTM is right now, no problem. We're going to go through the definition, what it is, how you track it, all of that in this video. If you've kind of heard it, cool. We're going to expand on it and explain why and how you can get your UTMs from wherever you've created them all the way into Salesforce, your CRM, so that when you get into your CRM, you can pull one report and see which marketing channels are giving you the most leads. This is going to really help you and your sales team start to convert more because you're going to focus on the people that are the best leads coming through. Okay. So if you haven't looked me up before, my name is Jordan Nelson, and I have the majority of my following at this point in time on LinkedIn. Feel free to jump over there. But I've worked with 4 different startups at this point that have reached unicorn status. So Vercel being one of those, Podium being one, Health Equity being one, Divvy that got acquired by another company being one. And all of these companies that I worked for, I noticed that we're all basically doing the same system. And again, as I got to know that, I would then go and look at other companies that are much larger than they were, much larger market cap, Fortune 500 companies, and they would also be doing this system. So this is a really cool one that I like to actually get implemented when I start working with new tech companies that are kind of starting out 3 million at least in revenue, if not a little bit more, and looking to scale up to 100 million. This is a really good key piece of information you want to have in the business to be able to do that. Okay. So really, what we're going to focus on are these 3 decisions. This is basically what all the billion-dollar startups are focused on when I'm working with them and why they want to use this system. So number 1 is fast decisions. When first and last touch, which we're going to talk about, are locked in and you have that tracked on all of your leads, your team is going to stop arguing about reports and numbers, and they'll start just being able to execute on what your strategy is. So if you're in meetings right now and you guys argue a lot about all these different places you have your numbers, Excel, Google Sheet, Salesforce, maybe you're using HubSpot as well as Salesforce. Then you have all your marketing channels, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat, all these places where you're advertising. There's just too many numbers that you guys are trying to argue that is the truth. And so really this is going to speed things up by pushing it into one place. You have one report, one dashboard, you trust the numbers, and you can just move on with your strategy in your business versus arguing about if it's true or not true. That's why decisions slow, because somebody pushes back on you in the meeting, says that's not the right number. Maybe it really isn't. Maybe you have to go back and actually go through the numbers again, but it just slows you down from being able to move in the strategy. Okay. The second one is growing reliably. So if you don't know where your leads come from, it makes it really hard for you to just basically turn this into a formula. You want it to feel like a formula to where it's like, hey, when we spend $50,000 a month, we know that we're going to get $100,000 a month in new business because we've turned this into a formula. We know that we would spend, let's just pretend 20,000 on Meta, another 20,000 on Instagram, and then the last 10,000 on LinkedIn. And if we just do that over and over and over again from these ads that we've tested, we know we'll always double our money. That's the way you want it to feel. So growing reliably is really a big key piece of this. And then lastly is just spending wisely, right? So if we're spending better on our marketing efforts to get leads in, it's just going to make it easier and feel less of a headache when you have to talk about things like raises and bonuses and the Christmas party and new engineering that you got to like pull in, and what you're going to spend on design and what you're going to spend on the building and infrastructure for your company, like all those other things that you have to spend money on. That becomes less of a hassle because this marketing and lead system is now predictable. Like I said, it's a formula. So we know that in the next quarter, we're going to earn X amount of dollars because it's a formula now. So this is where it all starts. You got to have to know the tactical piece about, about how to do this in order to make it feel that way. It's not just a, track one lead source. We got to actually kind of know how to do this, right? So I'm going to share with you how that is done. Okay, so this really tiny system down here, let me zoom in. This is what this is going to look like. This is our flow, okay? So number 1 over here, we have our traffic. Traffic coming in is going to be from all these places that you guys advertise, probably plus a lot more out of here that you're not seeing. So, anything from Calendly, where you're sending, maybe your sales reps send people directly to their Calendly links, to Google ads, Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, Twitter ads, threads, all this stuff in here, right? All this good stuff that you guys are trying to advertise on. You basically just have traffic out there, people that exist on these platforms. You're trying to get their attention. After we start advertising there and posting stuff there organically, the very first thing we want to do is start tracking this. So over here on this side, on your left-hand side, all of this information, yes, you do get numbers. Yes, I can go and look at how things are performing, but this is all going to be anonymized data. There's a lot of laws out there, GDPR laws, that anonymize the data that you're collecting. So I can't actually see that, Mike over here on Facebook was the one who clicked on our stuff and he's in X job and he works for X company, because it's anonymized. So I just know that 500 people clicked it. I don't know specifically who the person was that clicked it. That's part of the problem that we're going to be solving through this, okay? So anonymized data, and that's why I have this outlined in black, okay? Just to try to show a visual difference as we go through this. So the very next thing that you want to do, if this person does become interested in whatever ad that you put out there, then what we want to do, obviously, number one, is de-anonymize that. We want to give them information so that they feel it's valuable enough to trade their personal information back to us. So that might look like a lead magnet, that might look like a form, that might look like a video, that might look like a webinar. You're doing something in exchange for value, okay? So this is where we set that tracking. And how do we do that? It's this thing called a UTM, okay? And you've probably seen these before. If you're in operations, you might have seen them in URLs, or pretty popular. And then some of the larger companies actually have gone to the extent of kind of changing the way the URL is. So it's not so obvious that they're tracking you. So it doesn't kind of freak you out as one of the consumers. So I'm going to show you an example here, but a UTM is basically just a small tag that we add to these people that click on our ads or interact with us or go to our landing pages. And it will tell us where they came from. So we can track that true lead source that I'm referring to. And there's a few different UTMs that we're going to track that we'll talk about towards the end. Okay. But there's lead source being one of them. We can also track things though, like content and the campaign and things like that internally that we want to attach that tracking to. That we'll get into. So here's an example, all right? So we have the meta ad library, and we're going to open this up. This is going to pull us into Spotify. I thought would be a good one. So if we look at Spotify, it's a huge company. We all recognize the name. That's kind of one reason I pulled it, all right? So if we get into the meta ads library, here's the ads that they're currently running on Meta. And if I click on one of these and act like I were to engage with it, so let's click this learn more, open a tab. This is now going to push me to a landing page. Pretty simple, pretty 101 marketing, right? Now up here, this is what you should be paying attention to. See up here, you have these UTMs, and I don't think I can make this larger for you, but you should be able to see this, right? So they have something called a UTM. And just like I mentioned to you, this one is their campaign first. So the campaign is going to represent internally for Spotify. This is the campaign that they're running. You'll also notice this says paid social. So it's some type of paid social that they're running. It's from Facebook specifically. And then this might have some internal jargon, but you see how specific that is? That is like very specific to tell me what campaign they're running that's connected to this ad. So RTG, I have no idea what that stands for. All EN, maybe all English, evergreen, cross device, cost per click, maybe new release. So that's the campaign that they have named. Okay. And then the UTM source is right here. So this dives in a little bit more. So you have a campaign. We know it's paid social, but more specifically, the source is Facebook. And then the medium is paid social, kind of similar to your campaign. You don't necessarily always have to have paid social here in your campaign, but the medium will usually be like where this is coming from. So paid social or newsletter or something like that. And then you have your UTM content as well, which will just further go into details about what this is that somebody's clicking on. Okay. So for them, it's super listeners standard. So this is a much, much larger company than probably anybody watching this, right? Spotify's massive. Everybody knows Spotify. And this is a practice that they're using. They're tracking UTMs. Now, if I go to other websites such as like Apple, they do, but what they'll do is they'll make this information up top not as obvious. So it doesn't really look like you're getting tracked. They kind of encrypt the data, if you will. So this is a very standard practice that everybody follows, okay? And we want to do the exact same thing here. Sorry, I had to refresh my page there, bring myself back. All right, so we have these UTMs. You just saw what they were. We're going to load those all up. You can create these UTMs on these different platforms that you're on. So Facebook, you can go and create them. Instagram, LinkedIn, all these places you can create those UTMs, including things like MailChimp and Calendly. So MailChimp, usually a lot of people around this size, at around 3 million, if not a little bit more. Pretty common for your newsletters and email blasts. You might be using like ConvertKit or something else. Either one of those, you can all set them. This is a very standard practice for all of them. You'd set these UTMs and they are ready to go. So basically, when I now advertise or I send an email from one of those places, or someone clicks on my Calendly link, they're preloaded in this URL up top, just like you saw over here. When I hit this, right, it's preloaded. It already has those UTMs in there. And that's super important so that we can see what comes through when we get to our CRM. Okay. So the very next thing that you would do after you have those UTMs created on those places is you're going to do probably one of two things. You're either going to send them to some type of form fill, or you're going to send them to a landing page that has a form fill. Okay. So sometimes on like LinkedIn, you just want to have a form fill, and this little pop-up has like their first name, last name, company, and you just have them fill it out and then it's done. We don't actually push them to a landing page of some sort. In this situation, as you saw with Spotify as an example, they are pushing me to a landing page. So I go directly there, and then I can fill out a form on there to get this new release that they're probably promoting. Okay. So either or works, but these are both really common. You have this form fill, which is like Typeform, Gravity Form, Form Assembly. Sometimes people use Google Forms. You can also use Salesforce, which we'll talk about as well. And that does it natively for you. So it kind of skips a step that I'll talk about at the end. But you have some common examples here, or you have a landing page. So here's a landing page for calm.com. Might be familiar with it. It's the app that I've actually never used it, but I think all these things down here, I think it's supposed to just kind of give you like a mental reset. But here's a landing page, right? We would go there, kind of like Spotify one, and then you're going to have a call to action where I would hit try claim for free. I would click on that, and it's probably going to give me some information to fill out to be able to use it for free. In other words, what they're doing here is they're saying you can use our product for free in exchange for your information so that you're no longer anonymous to us. And we're then going to track those UTMs when you hit this landing page that you came from Google. So let's use Meta as our example all the way through. Okay. So I don't keep jumping from platform to platform. So if someone was on Meta, we then set up our UTMs. They go to either a form or a landing page, and I fill out my information here in exchange for something else. In this situation with Calm, it's to use their product for free. And those UTMs are following me all the way through now. So now it's going to tell them that, hey, they clicked on this very specific ad that I'm running on Meta, and that's how they landed on this landing page, because this landing page is set up specifically for that ad. So at this situation here, this is typically where people will do this, all right? So as you're smaller, don't get overwhelmed. You don't necessarily need to create a landing page for every single ad that you put out there. Now, as the company scales and gets bigger, they're more than likely going to do that so that you can track very specifically how people interact. And I won't go too deep in this, it's more marketing, but as we know, everything influences the way somebody decides to convert. And that's what you got to test. So wording, the colors, if you have a video like this, like what color of shirt I'm wearing, all that stuff influences people. So having more landing pages in the end, when you scale bigger and bigger, is helpful because we can test more things. We can see which one's converting the best. And if we know, hey, if we put out this ad that has a girl and this is the specific colors that we use in the background, and we send them to this specific landing page, we have a higher chance of converting that lead for us, right? So there's all that stuff that you're going to want to test and go through. Okay, cool. So either one of those, you're going to do that. We're then going to have that form in either situation collect the data. So it's going to look something like this: first name, last name, website, company, whatever else that you want to include. Little caveat here is typically the less information that you ask, the higher chance of bad quality leads comes through, but you'll probably have more leads. So if I only ask for an email, like a newsletter, I get a lot of people that sign up for the newsletter because it's It's low risk. It's low skin in the game, right? I just got to give you my email. That's it. Now, if I ask a bunch of questions like this and someone sees this, then they really debate on how much they actually care to use your product or sign up for the thing, right? So if the people do fill this out, they have higher intent. They're more interested in what you have to say because they thought it was worth it to take the 5 minutes to fill it all out. So use that as your balancing act, which is basically more questions, yeah, probably less volume of leads, but higher quality or higher intent. And then less questions, more leads, but a lot more bad ones that you're probably going to have to sift through. After we collect the data, this is where we're going to go into our integration step. Okay. So you saw me talk about it a little bit earlier, but basically when we have these forms or this landing page right here, you got to take it from that form, whatever they filled out, this thing right here. You got to somehow translate that data into Salesforce. It doesn't just automatically go into Salesforce. So you got to do something to get the information from here into your CRM, which is Salesforce. So there's a few options you can do. Now, the easiest one to kind of skip a step is just use Salesforce. So there's a little thing in Salesforce called web to lead. And basically it generates a little bit of this form. You can select the fields you want them to fill out and it will generate a form like this for you. And then you can just copy paste that and put it onto your website. So it's like an embedded form. And then when they fill that out, because it's a Salesforce integration or it's a Salesforce native tool, you could say, it's going to automatically create that lead for you in Salesforce. So you kind of get to skip a step. It's just like, sweet, we took this little embedded code from Salesforce, put it on our website, they fill it out, and then boom, it creates a lead for me automatically. That's what I would do to be able to skip a step. It just kind of simplifies the process. Now, if you don't want to do that, a reason that you might not want to is because of the testing we talked about, okay? So where I see people use Salesforce is you have less landing pages, you have less maybe places that you advertise. So it's simple and easy to just use a web to lead form from Salesforce. Now, if I have 100 plus landing pages that I am caring for people to go and fill out and land on, then I see it to be a little bit more popular to use a third-party integrator to get that info from where it's at into Salesforce. Now, as a best practice, what I would do first, though, is always check with whatever platform you're using to see if they have a native integration with Salesforce so you don't have to buy one of these third-party tools. So Salesforce, like I just told you, can do it. It's pretty simple using a web to lead. But if you use something like Unbounce for like your landing pages, if you're creating a bunch there, or I think there's just another one called like Lead Pages, those should have integrations with Salesforce. So that way, when they go to your Unbounce landing page, it should just have an integration from Salesforce that you just connect the two together and it will create a lead inside of Salesforce. So Salesforce actually has what's similar to your phone, which is like the App Store if you use an Apple product or Google Play. It'll have that same thing for Salesforce. They call it the App Exchange. So you can go to the App Exchange and basically just download an app like you do on your phone, but it'll be for Unbounce or one of these other tools that you want, MailChimp or something like that. LinkedIn does it as well. And then you can download that in your Salesforce, and then that will also integrate it so you don't have to buy a third-party tool too. So like for us, at the size my business is right now for like LinkedIn, when we run ads over there, I just have the app in Salesforce that says, hey, when someone fills out a form inside of LinkedIn, automatically push that in as a lead to Salesforce. So it makes it really simple and easy to set up. Now, if that, for whatever reason, you don't want to go that route, or you want to use one of these third party, or maybe you're already using one of these third party, or you just want to do it for the sake of doing that and have something separate, there's a few different places you can do that. There's quite a few. These are the main ones that I usually hear get mentioned. I'm actually a big fan of Zapier. I know sometimes that gets hated on for whatever reason. I think more in like the technical space with like engineering. I think sometimes they're just very engineering forward. And so they kind of feel like it's too DIY friendly. That's kind of why I like it. Like, especially at this growth stage startup, it allows you to just be able to get in there, start using it, and not really have many problems with it. It's easy to use, good interface. So I like Zapier. But there's some other ones that allow you to do some more technical stuff if you needed that for whatever reason. And those would be like make.com is probably the next one that I have the most experience with. Trade.ai is another good one. And then this is kind of like a newer one, this NAN. But all of them would basically do the same thing, which is just saying, hey, I have a landing page. I need to get this over to Salesforce. How do I do that? You use one of these tools and they connect those apps for you. So it's really cool and easy to see. If you're not quite understanding that idea, just go onto the Zapier website. Like I said, it's really geared for a DIY type of approach. So it'll simply explain that for you too. Okay, cool. So once it's integrated, we're then going to land here. Here is where you have the UTM lead inside of Salesforce. So you're going to have something come in. This is going to what it's going to look like inside of Salesforce. You have this brand new lead, right? And then it's going to have their information. And then if you want it on the page layout, I would suggest creating a new section called marketing information. And then I would display all of those UTMs that you're trying to collect. If you don't care for that, a lot of companies don't. They just keep it on the back end. They don't display it for anybody to see on the page layout, but it's still available inside of Salesforce. Okay. Either way works. It's still going to get there. It's just a matter if you want to see it on the lead or you don't care. This is what an example of those UTMs would look like. And I suggest splitting this up between last touch and first touch. And I'm going to explain what that means. So UTMs here, we have, just like you saw on the Spotify, the source would be Meta in our example. They found us on Facebook or Meta. And then the medium would be paid social, meaning it came from our paid social channel. We're paying for advertising on Meta. That's a paid social media. And then our campaign is whatever you want to call it. So this is more internal jargon. This is going to be what we relate to it. So is this our Q1 lead generation? Is this a trade show thing? Is this a Facebook test number one? Like, what's the campaign we're running internally with the marketing team? And let's set that as the name and then connect that to that campaign you're going to run on Meta. And then the content here is going to obviously be what it is that we're displaying. So in this situation, video ad number one. This makes it really easy to tie back to what ad creatives are also going to be working for your leads too. Okay. So this one's a really cool one. Now you're going to do the same thing for first touch and last touch. This will get a little bit more tricky. But from here, what I would suggest you do is you have a difference between first touch and last touch. First touch just means this is the very first time that they interacted with us, and this is how they found out who we are. Since this is lead targeting, this is going to be super essential to basically say, hey, what worked when we pushed it in front of them to get their attention and get them interested enough in our product or service that they actually wanted to give us their information. So you're never going to overwrite this information. Once we collect it the first time, it's there forever. And that just lets you know that's how they first found out who you were. That's really helpful because the differences between like cold offering and warm offering and hot offering, meaning the lead's really cold, they have no idea who you are. Warm would be they know who you are, they've seen a lot of your stuff, but they haven't interacted with you yet. And then hot, meaning they interact with you all the time, they just haven't purchased from you. Those are all going to be different approaches and how you do your marketing. And so we want to know how they found us and have that first touch so that we would know, hey, what's working for really cold traffic? Like what's the first thing that they interacted with us that we can keep serving up to people that are really cold that we're now trying to target. Last touch is going to be the opposite of that. So this is the last thing that they interacted with before they actually converted into closed business for you. They became a deal. The deal was done. So last touch is kind of the opposite. Hey, when they were really hot and we knew that who they were and they were interacting with us and we'd already talked with them with sales and everything, what's the last thing that they interacted with that got their attention and finally pushed them over the line? These ones usually come in more of like somebody goes through a funnel. I know this is a lot of like marketing focus, but lead and marketing go kind of hand in hand. But if you're not familiar with like a typical marketing funnel, you have like these people up top that's like, you know, general interest. And then the bottom of the funnel is people that are, like I just said, really hot. They've looked into a lot of your stuff. They're interested. They probably are going to buy. They just haven't done it yet. Now, in that situation, when they're at the bottom of the funnel, it's a lot more likely that they're going to go and read deeper information about your company. So they might be reading like, who is the founder? Like, where did you guys come from? Where are you established? How many people work there? What are your reviews on Google? Do you have a blog site that I can read? Do you have use cases or case studies about your product or service and how this has helped others? Like, I'm really basically looking for that last piece of validation before I buy the product to make sure I'm not crazy for buying this. Versus your first touch, like we just said, is a lot more of like the ads. Like, hey, I don't even know who these guys are. Seems kind of interesting. What is this? And it's more surface level 101. This is our product or service. This is how we help people versus the bottom. This is how it's going to probably help your business or help your life, right? Okay, cool. So that's the difference. And I would seriously recommend splitting it up that way versus just tracking just the UTMs. If you want to just kind of get going and just track the UTMs, you always can. But I do like the first and last touch so that you can split this up later and have that foundation ready to go when you get to it. Okay. Now, this is what it's going to look like. So up in here are the reports. This is really where this makes the biggest difference. So now we have one source that we can look at reports as well as dashboards. All right. So the report is going to show you something like this. You have this UTM touch point. And in this example that I found randomly on the internet is the UTM source split up by the source. Okay. So when I'm looking at my leads now in October and November and December, clearly 6 years ago in 2020, I can see how these ones are split up. Right. So I can see that my Facebook one is giving me 4. In the middle here is Google giving me kind of the bulk of those. And then at the top, I got newsletter. And then November looks a little bit different. I got more from Twitter. And then December, same thing. I got a lot more from Twitter. So this shows you trends month over month, what's working. Could also help point you back to those campaigns you're running. But more than anything, this is going to really help you split up your spend. This is a pretty simple report right here that we're looking at for an example. But think of all the other ways you could split this data. You could look to see how much money you've spent and then split it up that way too. And this kind of gives you that idea down here being more of a dashboard. So you'd have like all your UTM touch points by source. You'd have them by medium. You could have the source by month split up. You could have the medium split up by month. You could also do that for the campaign. You could do that for the content as well to see which one's the best performing ad, the best performing campaign, so on and so forth. Okay. So basically you're unlimited here now that this data lives here to split this up however you want to look at it. But when we zoom out, this is for your C-level people to say, hey, we know that when we are marketing in this way on these channels, this is what's giving us the most leads because it's proof, right? It came all the way through to Salesforce. We know this is the truth. And going back to the very beginning of why we're even doing this, it's so that we can do these 3 things, right? So faster decisions. I now have that one report. I don't have to go look at 900 places to figure out what leads did the best or how many leads I got from each place. It's all in one place. So now I can focus on, hey, we know Meta's working. Let's keep doubling down on that. We can grow reliably because this is now going to help us understand, hey, we're getting the majority of our leads from Facebook using these types of ads. This one seems to be working as our top channel. Let's spend way more money there. And if we were to just double the money, we should essentially be able to double the leads, right? Because now we have it into a formula. And then spend wisely. Now I have this extra cash that maybe I've been cutting from places I don't want to spend. Those might be, I don't know, billboards or print media or going to trade shows, or maybe LinkedIn's just not doing as well as Meta for your specific audience. They're just not really on there. We can now take that extra fund and put it towards actual priorities. Maybe that's hiring somebody better, getting more pay for the people that are doing the bulk of the work. This could go to unlimited things, but this allows you to have that extra cash and spend it wisely. And this is super helpful for both people that have raised VC money as well as bootstrap, right? You always want to kind of know where your money's going and be able to report that back and use it towards your advantage for leverage. So that's really why we're doing this. All right. So really cool exercise. I know this one's a little bit long to get through, but this is a really cool strategy to set up. And we've done this, I don't even know how many at this point. So many different tech companies now that we work with. This is usually like one of the very first things that I try to get set up if it's not set up already, because this just bleeds into so many of the other things you're going to do. When we think about building your company and scaling it out, leads is really kind of where this starts. Leads and marketing, right? You have to have leads in order to grow. You have to make money in order to grow. So the marketing of figuring out how to target the right people is essential to knowing then how do we coach people on calls to give a better pitch. Well, you can't coach people on calls if you don't even get the leads, right? You can't hire better people if you're not getting leads because you're not making money. So we got to know that we're focusing on the right people, the right target audience. And I mentioned this at the beginning, but this bleeds into your sales cycle. I'll probably make another video in the future about how that gets to total revenue that you've made in the long run. But for targeting, this is also super helpful so that I know, hey, I am going after the right person. This is our ideal client. We have them interested. These are the right people coming in from all of our ads. We know it. We vetted them. What can we improve from here? And that gives you a good sanity check to make sure that the marketing dollars you're spending are going to the right people. Okay, so if you've never set this up, or you're interested in setting up, or you have set it up and it's not done, I did include a link in the description. Like I mentioned, this is something we've done for number of companies, and it without fail always works and helps them get to that next level because it's all about visibility. So if you want the help to be able to do this versus trying to figure it out on your own, click the link in the description. We'll then get on a call, see if we're a good fit for you guys as your consultants first. If we are, then we can come in, talk about what you guys currently do, and then get this all set up for you so you don't have to worry about trying to figure it out all on your own. So if that is you, looking forward to speaking with you soon. Thanks.